Genre, narrative nonfiction. Bummer and Lazarus by Dennis Furtick, illustrated by Josh Brunette. Bummer and Lazarus. In the winter of 1861, a big black dog dodged moving wagons on a busy San Francisco street. It sniffed here and there as it searched for food. At times it gently approached humans and looked for dinner. Often someone gave the dog a snack and said, "Here you go, Bummer." Stray dogs like Bummer were common in San Francisco in the 1860s. These dogs were a part of great changes in the city. Before the year 1849, San Francisco had been a tiny village. Then gold was discovered nearby. People rushed to San Francisco. They came by horse and wagon. They came in ships. They all hoped to get rich. Some did, most did not. But the small village quickly grew into a city of more than 50,000 people. When people came to find gold, they often brought dogs with them. Over time, many dogs became homeless strays. Soon there were too many stray dogs. Yet many strays were friendly and likable. Bummer was one of those. He looked as if he was always smiling. That is one reason that people fed him, but people fed Bummer and other dogs for another reason. These dogs were good at getting rid of another animal pest. Rats. Rats also came to San Francisco on ships. That was a common way for rats to see the world. In their new city, rats had very, very large families. Many types of dogs have been bred to hunt rats. These dogs work hard to get rid of them. Bummer was an expert rat hunter. He could quickly destroy a nest of dozen rats. People were happy to have dogs like Bummer around the neighborhood. Bummer becomes famous. Bummer's neighborhood was filled with newspaper offices and reporters. The reporters were always looking for interesting stories. On a January day in 1861, Bummer did something that made him very interesting. A crowd of people watched a terrible fight between a large, nasty dog and a much smaller one. It looked as if the smaller dog might not survive. Suddenly, a third dog raced into the battle. It was Bummer. He immediately chased the large dog away. He saved the small dog's life. Then Bummer did more. He led the wounded dog to a doorway to heal. At night, Bummer would protect the smaller dog from the cold, unfriendly strays. Bummer even shared food he had received from humans with the poor dog. In fact, Bummer made sure that the small dog ate before he did. Newspaper reporters wrote about Bummer's unselfish acts. The reporters even gave the small dog a name, Lazarus. As Lazarus healed, he made the rounds with Bummer. The people of San Francisco treated Bummer as a hero. After Lazarus was healthy, he and Bummer stayed great pals. It turned out that Lazarus was also a good hunting rats. The famous duo of Bummer and Lazarus quickly grew in popularity. More stories. Over the next few years, there were many stories about Bummer and Lazarus. The best stories describe Bummer and Lazarus' clever adventures. For example, stories explain how the pair worked together to get Bones away from other dogs. People were delighted that Bummer and Lazarus was working as a team. One story was hard to believe. When a runaway horse raced down a busy street, Bummer and Lazarus ran alongside it until Bummer could cut in front of it. That slowed the horse down so a man could grab its reins. Were Bummer and Lazarus that smart? The dogs did misbehave now and then. More than once the dogs were locked in a store overnight. They were supposed to get rid of rats, but instead they destroyed much of the store trying to get out. Bummer and Lazarus loved their freedom. Once Bummer was injured and unable to get his own food. People worried about him. During this time, Lazarus brought Bummer food, but only after he had eaten some for himself. The people of San Francisco loved Lazarus, but knew that no dog was as caring as Bummer. Special treatment. As the adventures of Bummer and Lazarus continued, the city's love for the pair grew too. Crowds welcomed them wherever they went. Someone took Lazarus to the dog pound once. People across the city demanded he be set free. After that, the friends were free to roam the town without fear of the dog catcher. During this time, Bummer and Lazarus continued to rid the city of rats, and they continued to enjoy the love, respect, and food of many San Francisco citizens. Their adventures filled the papers. Tragedy strikes. Stray dogs in San Francisco still face risk every day, though, even famous ones. One October morning in 1863, Lazarus ate something he should not have. The poor dog died. When newspapers reported the story, sadness spread over the city. Of course, nobody, human or dog, was as sad as Bummer. For the rest of his life, Bummer never wandered too far from where he last saw Lazarus. That made people love Bummer even more. Eventually, brave Bummer was seriously injured on a city street. The newspapers gave daily reports about his health. People hoped Bummer would get better, but he did not. When Bummer died in the fall of 1865, sadness again filled the city. Two dogs remembered. After Bummer and Lazarus was gone, more stories about them were told. As years passed, people wondered if Bummer and Lazarus could have been real. They were. They were great friends who looked out for each other and for the city of San Francisco. They even became known as the Damon and Pythias of dogs, in honor of the legendary friends from ancient Greece. In 1992, the city put up a plaque to honor the two dogs. It ends with these words: two dogs, but with a single bark, two tails that wagged as one. The city of San Francisco still loves Bummer and Lazarus.